So speaking of which, a long and uncertain road to Alberta independence. This is an older article. This is from the last time things were kicking up, which was funny enough was in 2019, which was
Wow.
before COVID. Yeah. So just to talk about that in 2019, where we were at, Premier Jason Kenney has suggested that Canada is facing a crisis of national unity. I mean, this would have been when Trudeau was already putting cap on emissions and all that, which is basically just shutting down our economy. He cited a poll from the Angus Reid Institute where 50% of Albertans stated that they
That's so close.
thought Alberta separating from Canada was a real possibility. In a March 2019 poll, this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 56% of Albertans agreed with the statement Western Canada gets so few benefits from being part of Canada that they might as well go it on their own. These feelings of unease led the separatist Alberta Independence Party to participate in the 2019 general election. However, the party did not fare well in results. Anyway, these developments have raised the question, how could Alberta legally separate from Canada if the people of the province chose to do so? For Alberta to achieve independence from Canada, there would need to be a clear majority of Albertans voting in a referendum for independence. Following the referendum result, so the Quebec one in the 90s was like 49 to 51, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was really
1%.
close. Very close.
Following the referendum result, constitutional negotiations between Alberta, the federal government, and other provinces would need to be successful. The legal framework for separation. Following the narrow defeat of the Quebec independence referendum in 1995, the federal government asked the Supreme Court of Canada to consider how a province could legally separate from Canada. The court provided a roadmap for legal separation in 1998, a reference. Following the case, the federal government enacted a law in 2000 to provide clarity for how the federal government would approach a future independence referendum 25 years ago. The steps to achieve Alberta independence. The Canadian Constitution would need to be amended for a province to separate from Canada. The following steps would need to be followed. 1. Decide to hold an independence referendum. While the referendum itself has no direct or legal effect on our constitutional scheme, it is required to gauge the views of the electorate on important political questions. Thus, a referendum would be necessary if Albertans want to leave Canada. 2. Decide on a referendum question to ask the population. The question needs to be clear. The Clarity Act prohibits the federal government from entering negotiations on separations if the House of Commons determines the referendum question is not clear. Blah, blah, blah. 3. Conduct the campaign, hold the referendum, and tally the votes. A campaign period would be required for the pro and anti-independence activists to advocate for their positions. The campaign would likely be divisive since the referendum would have a significant impact on the future of Alberta as well as the rest of Canada. If the pro-independence side garners the most votes in the referendum, they must have received enough votes to show a clear expression of the will of the Albertans to leave Canada. The House of Commons will decide if the majority vote in favor of separation is a clear expression of the will of Albertans to leave Canada. The court stated that considerable weight must be given to a clear expression of the will of the population to separate, but neither clear expression nor what might form a clear majority were defined. A qualitative evaluation is required to gauge a clear expression. Similarly, the Clarity Act is ironically unclear about what would form a clear majority in favor of separation. So, 5, Alberta, the federal government, and other provincial governments will engage in negotiations to change the Constitution.
Yeah, I guess it would be. I think they would do everything they could to not make that happen.
Conclusion, a long road to Alberta independence. The Quebec Succession Reference and the Clarity Act provide the legal roadmap for how Alberta could gain independence from Canada. The crisis of national unity between Alberta and the rest of Canada can make it relevant to consider how this constitutional change could occur, even if the idea of a province separating is currently only an academic exercise. It is possible for Alberta to separate from Canada, but the process would be long, uncertain, and fraught with difficulty. Unless you had Uncle Donnie helping out, greasing the palms, then I think obviously that wouldn't be independent, but it'd probably be better than what we got now.